left, they start crying, but when it's done to us, they're cheering. It's really a remarkable thing to watch that they're not recognizing their own hypocrisy. And I guess it shouldn't be that remarkable. I've always said that there's no mirrors in a leftist house because there's no self-reflection whatsoever. And, well, they got a little bit of a taste of their own medicine yesterday with our lead story of the day of Jimmy Kimmel being canceled by Disney. The House of Mouse is back, baby. And look, this was a long time coming. This ain't no little thing, folks, that came out of nowhere. This has been brewing for years, and they kept getting away with it. Now what you're seeing is, well, there has to be some sort of standard. There has to be some sort of line with these employers going, you know what? Yeah, that's a little bit too far. We need some sort of standard and decency back in American life. And, you know, that's one reason why a lot of people kind of kept their mouths shut for a long time, was because they didn't want to be fired from their job because they're a little bit cuckoo and they're saying a little bit of too crazy of things. Now, somebody might say, well, Brad, aren't you fearful of losing your job? Well, of course, but I also don't say crazy things like Jimmy Kimmel. Somebody might think they're crazy, but me saying, yeah, you know what? You shouldn't break the law. You know, you should go to church. You should raise your kids. You should have self and personal responsibility. You should be careful of the mistakes that you make. You should try to limit them so they don't have outgrowths to make more mistakes or to burden you financially or something like that. All my stuff is just common sense. It's nothing revolutionary. It's not rocket science, but for some reason, the progressive left will say it is. For example, they'll come after you and try to get you fired if you say a man is a man and a woman is a woman. Something that's like objective truth. It would be, this is how insane they are. It would be like them trying to get you fired for saying the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. That is to the point we are at in today's society, where they will disagree with you on a statement that's objective truth. I'm sorry, but when I see a guy walking around Hollywood Boulevard and he's naked and his pee-pee's weighing back and forth, yeah, I'm going to say that's a dude. The beard was kind of the dead giveaway as well. The male pattern baldness, the deep voice, the Adam's apple. Yeah, the no boobies. All that was also a dead giveaway. But I mean, the really cheese on the cracker is that was it for me. So yesterday, Jimmy Kimmel was pulled indefinitely after criticism erupted over comments the host made after the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. And I do have the clip here. I thought I had it pulled up, but give me one moment to get that clip for you. Really disgusting stuff from Jimmy Kimmel. Really bad taste from him. But this is what happens when you get so comfortable in your position that you will go out and just say crazy things. So here's the clip that was going viral yesterday.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. Demolition, construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish, okay?
And it's good.
Well, those comments didn't sit well with people on social media, let me tell you. And people are bashing this guy left and right. Kimmel's comments about the death of Charlie Kirk are offensive and insensitive at a critical time in our political discourse, and we do not believe they reflect the spectrum of opinions, views, and values of the local communities in which we are located. Andrew Alford, the president of Nexstar's broadcasting division. I mean, they removed him from like 30-something broadcast stations. Continuing to give Mr. Kimmel a broadcast platform in the communities we serve is simply not in the public interest at the current time. At the current time, I don't think there is a time to be talking like that, to be fair, unless the person's like a terrorist or something like that, then maybe. But my point is, going back to yesterday, is when you are raised from a young age to look at good versus evil, whether it's in movies and books, it doesn't matter where, we always cheer on evil being deleted and destroyed because we want good to rise up. Well, the problem is that when you are raised from birth, from the media, the news, maybe your psycho leftist parents, your teachers, your college education as well, to the movies, to Disney, like everywhere you look, you are getting only your own personal bubble telling you that Charlie Kirk is evil. Well, when you grow up your entire life being told that Charlie Kirk is evil, then you're going to cheer on when Charlie Kirk is deleted because that's what you think he is evil. But that's how twisted and sick these people are, is they don't have the wherewithal to go out and look and see, is this person really evil, or am I just being blown a bunch of smoke? Am I just being BS'd? Most people, you guys, nowadays, well, really for a long time, they're not able to go research to see if something's legitimate or not. Sometimes you're going to get things wrong, but going your whole life is a pretty remarkable thing to do. And Benjamin Franklin has a quote on that one. We're all born stupid, but it takes, takes somebody to stay stupid or something like that. Hey, you got to look up the quote. I can't remember. It's 6 a.m. It's morning. I'm still trying to wake up. Barely halfway through my coffee. Federal Communications Commission Chairman Brendan Carr suggested earlier Wednesday that his agency might pursue action against ABC affiliates who air Kimmel's comments. And pretty much right when that was said, Kimmel was a bye-bye. During his latest show, Kimmel claimed that the gunman who murdered Kirk last week was a member of the MAGA gang and mocked President Donald Trump for his response to Kirk's death. So we have that there. And this is not the only person that's been let go, right? You also have Stephen Colbert that's going to be let go. You have a lot of these leftists. One, they're losing money hand over fist. They're also causing possible lawsuits, meaning they're a major liability to their company. And they're not funny. It's not late night comedy anymore. When you get to the point where you're scraping at the bottom of the barrel, that the only comedy that you could do because of your Trump derangement syndrome is Donald Trump, you got a massive problem. And people want to get away from politics late at night. They see it all day. They're tired of it. Give them something a little bit different. So late night comedy is dead. And nobody wants to see their garbage anymore. And I think finally ABC's realizing it, and they took the opportunity to get rid of them. Well, we also have updates here regarding Charlie Kirk's assassination, and Matt Walsh believes that, we're not getting the full story about Charlie Kirk's assassination. And on a objective level, that's always going to be true because this is an investigation that's going on. They're not always going to just pour out all the information they have. There is a little bit of stuff that is kind of wonky and a little bit weird here. So just hours before the district attorney of Utah County formally announced the charge against Charlie Kirk's assassin, and before he ran through some new evidence that authorities had collected, a left-wing journalist, check this out, named Ken Klippenstein, published an exclusive article on his Substack, which happens to be one of the most popular political Substacks in the country. Well, to much fanfare, Klippenstein reported that he had obtained private messages from people who knew the shooter on the day that Charlie was killed. These messages were uploaded to a private server on Discord, which is a communication service that's popular among young people, which we started here. We have a Discord server ourselves. Well, look at this. Here's one of the screenshots that Klippenstein provided in his article. So let me zoom in here for you guys so you can see it as well. There we go. Okay. So September 10th at 3:17 p.m., Charlie Kirk got shot. About 30 minutes later after that was said, dead. 4:40, so about an hour later, I just saw the video. Holy bleep, rip, I guess. Bro didn't deserve to go out like that. Sad. And then it says, hey guys, I have bad news for you all. It was me. So this is the next day. This is September 11th at 9 p.m. from Zealous Monkey 55095. It says, hey guys, I have bad news for all of you. It was me at UVU yesterday. I'm sorry for all of this. I'm surrendering through a sheriff friend in a few moments. Thank you for all the good times and laughs. You've all been so amazing. Thank you all for everything. What the hell? So a little bit weird. Not to mention, the text messages or the messages that we saw between the trans dude, the guy, the boyfriend, hell, I don't know, and Tyler Robinson, that was really weird yesterday as well. I mean, it was very like, boom, boom, boom. We're going to check that off. We're going to check that off. I'm not trying to build a conspiracy theory. All I'm saying is it is kind of odd. It reads, hey, everyone, if you haven't seen the news yet, Tyler's post is true. He was taken into custody earlier today for the shooting of Charlie Kirk. While Kirk's politics were not acceptable to some, I asked that we all say a prayer for him and his family during these confusing times. The rest of the article contains quotes from one of the shooter's friends claiming he was generally apolitical. And then Klippenstein offers this conclusion. Check this out. Trump and company portray the alleged Utah shooter as left-wing, and liberals portray him as right-wing. But the federal conclusion will inevitably be that he was a so-called nihilist, violent extremist. To recap, some members of the shooter's Discord group shared a small number of screenshots with a popular left-wing Substack author. The screenshots show the commentary and the community was most focused on video games and wasn't celebrating Kirk's death in the slightest. The author publishes those screenshots and presents them as proof that the shooter wasn't actually left-wing. Supposedly, he was just nihilist and angry at the world. Very apparently, the intent of this article was to deflect any suspicion from Discord and the people the shooter was interacting with on the platform. Presumably, that's why the shooter's friends gave these screenshots to Klippenstein. But in truth, the screenshots raise far more questions than they answer. Well, yeah, because if you go here, look at these messages in the Times. After Charlie is shot, according to the screenshot, there's a grand total of 5 messages on this Discord server written by 2 people about the assassination. None of them are incriminating or even controversial. Those messages stop at 5 p.m. the entire evening of September 10th, and most of them September 11th until 9 p.m. No one says anything at all. And then out of nowhere, the shooter confesses. He basically tells an empty room, which appears to be uninterested in the Kirk assassination, that he did it. Yeah, a little bit odd, right? I mean, anybody would be like, hey, that's a little weird. I'm not saying it's, anything crazy, but it's kind of getting my antennas going up a little bit. So this is not evidence, as Ken claimed, that the shooter had no political motivations. It wasn't operating as part of a coordinated terror plot. It doesn't exonerate the shooter's acquaintances in any way. It actually is very odd. As far as evidence goes, it suggests that some messages from the Discord server may have been deleted or redacted before the screenshots were sent to Klippenstein. Or it suggests that they were communicating through a different channel in the interim between the last message from the group and out of nowhere confession from the killer. And it supports the conclusion that for one reason or another, some of the influential left-wing voices in this country, as well as close associates to the assassin, are desperate to hide the shooter's political motivation. Which is weird because we've seen that kind of time and time again of trying to hide the political motivation, right? You saw that with the Nashville trans shooter, where they wouldn't release the manifesto from the trans shooter, but they'll release a manifesto from a straight white dude that killed a bunch of people before. That's no problem. So there's a constant kind of theme here I'm seeing from shooters or these psychos, these lunatics, that whenever they're part of the progressive left, they want to make sure that the evidence doesn't get out that shows that they're progressive left. But yet at the same time, the progressive left are saying 86-47. Oh, they're chanting and cheering the death of Charlie Kirk. They're saying, oh, something's going to happen to Charlie Kirk on September 10th before it ever even happened. So it's a little bit of odd of, well, you had the balls to do it before, but now that you're the one that got caught, you don't have the balls anymore. A little weird. This whole thing is just weird. Well, Heather Cox Richardson, who I'm told, meaning Matt Walsh is told, is the single most popular political commentator on Substack, wrote that Kirk's assassin had, quote, embraced the far right. She said that conservative commentators had created a fictional world to argue otherwise. I just want to let you know, it is not a conservative value to be with a trans person. Yeah, it's not really a thing. And nor would you want to usually have a roommate that's trans. Nothing against them, but you're not going to go out of your way for it. Sometimes in college, if you're a freshman, you don't always get to choose who your roommate is. But that's not one of these scenarios, as far as I'm concerned. I could be wrong. Well, to restate what's happening here, some of the most influential voices on the left, not Reddit trolls, not these bots on Twitter, but actual people with large audiences, meaning people that went to school probably for journalism, air quotes, journalism, are going out of their way to lie about the murder of Charlie Kirk. And it's not just on Substack either. Here's the Jimmy Kimmel that we just watched is also portraying it as well. There's a huge movement right now trying to paint this guy as something that he's not. Tyler Robinson's mother expressed concern that her son had become left-leaning, pro-gay, and pro-trans in the last year. That part I don't agree with. Now, I agree that maybe the mother was just aware of it over the last year. You don't all of a sudden, you don't all of a sudden go, you know what, I'm gonna go after some D a little bit here. I'm gonna go after some trans stuff. I want the left-leaning stuff. Just over the last year, your mind just switches like that. I don't think so. Usually it's the other way around, right? Most people actually grow up Democrat and then they switch to the right. That's why we've always said, and the studies prove this, the right looks at the left differently, where we look at them as, what's the word I'm looking for? We look at them as basically making a bad decision, making irrational decisions, where they look at us as evil and stupid because we used to be one of them in some or most cases. We used to be Democrat and then we became Republican. So we understand what they're going through. We understand like, hey, you're kind of blind. You need to open your eyes. You need to do some research. You need to connect the dots and you'll get there. It's called being red-pilled. But they've never been one of us. Not only have they not been one of us, they don't even want to talk to us and understand what we actually believe in. Like, we don't want to harm them. We don't want to do anything to them. We just want to predominantly be left alone, carry on traditional values, and stop being forced to believe in a makeshift reality that, isn't reality, and that's not the right thing to do. And tell us, I don't want to be lying to everybody, so stop telling me to tell you that you're a man when you're actually a woman. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Seems pretty basic and simple, but they would rather just delete you and kill you than they would just actually just talk to you. That's the wild thing. They are so far gone, they would rather just delete you than just talk to you. Here we go.
And immediately after the shootings, no shell casings were found on the roof, suggesting a bolt action rather than an auto-loading weapon, and only a single round was fired. Each round in the rifle contained an etched inscription as follows. The fired cartridge was etched, no Tice's bulge, OWO, what's this? The second cartridge that was again not spent, the last three were not spent, were not fired. The second, hey fascist, catch, with arrow symbols. The third cartridge, oh Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow Chow. The fourth cartridge, if you read this, you are gay, LMAO. The rifle, ammunition rounds, and towel were sent for forensic processing.
And I believe they did find DNA on that forensic processing. And, well, what you have is Jimmy Kimmel coming out, but then you also have Montel Williams, for some reason, coming out and trying to romanticize this whole thing between the shooter and their trans lover. It's very odd. First of all, Montel Williams, where you been? I believe this is Montel Williams. I used to watch this guy like on those daily talk shows, talk about you stay home from school because you're sick. Well, here he is. It's pretty a wild exchange here.
Understand that as we continue, Scott just got all angry, got real mad. Face it, it's gotta be this, it's gotta be this, it's gotta be this. Why can't we have a discussion about how long is it going to take for us to figure out a way to come back together?
Just to be clear, I am angry.
Can we just let him finish
I
his
am
thought,
angry.
Scott? I'll let you
because
talk.
I knew it.
Scott, I'll let you talk in just a second. Go ahead.
Could we spend as much time figuring out how we bridge this and come back together again? I used to have a note on my producer's desk when I did my show that was said, we don't belabor what happens, we try to figure out why it happens and come up with solutions. Right now, all we're doing is belaboring what happened over and over and over and over again. We're not going to sit down and try to figure out how do we stop it. If we want to
go after left-wing terrorists. That's actually exactly the conversation we're having, is we're acknowledging there's a problem.
So anybody who disagrees with you is a left-wing terrorist?
Absolutely not, but if they target a conservative and murder him in brutal fashion, he's probably a left-wing terrorist.
Let me answer your question.
Yes, that person is a murderer.
You said,
we can all acknowledge that.
You said I am angry, and I'm just telling. I am channeling the emotions of millions of conservatives who are angry. They knew Charlie. They loved Charlie. They viewed Charlie as a mainstream conservative Republican voice who talked about issues that millions of Americans believe. He also talked about his faith. And he did it by going to college campuses, which are not normally hospitable to conservatives, and offering his opponents a microphone to have what we always
In
say.
support of what?
To
In
have
support of what?
Civil discourse.
Not only that, but support of the First Amendment.
And
he
guess
made
what?
sure that people had an opportunity to stand in a room and talk.
He was murdered trying to do what we always say. Why don't we talk to each other? So yes, it's not even been a week. So you're going to have to give us a little grace on being angry about somebody who did what you always say that we should do. Let's talk.
We didn't
and he
get
got
much
killed.
grace over.
And he got
more
killed.
than a week's grace over
So-
2 Michigan elected officials who were murdered. Did we give? Was it 3 weeks before we decided to say that there was something wrong with Speaker Pelosi's husband being hit in the head with a hammer?
By a homeless drug addict? I mean, it was terrible that happened. This is not the same kind of case.
You would think that you would have, again, the kind of the brains to, just go, you know what, I'm going to kind of pull back on this one. I'm going to be overly cautious about what I say because everybody's kind of on edge. Wouldn't you be very careful with your words? But this is how they are, though. This is how some of these people think, is that they don't ever think anything's going to happen to them. Like, I'm fearful that things are going to happen to me. I try my best to be very careful with my words, as anybody should. You shouldn't just go shout out a bunch of nonsense. But it is pretty crazy. So we have more stuff from Montel Williams here, where he says that Kirk's assassin was sad because people were mean to his boyfriend. I can't, man.
Hold this as a leftist thing and a right thing. And what we're really talking about, hear me because I'm going to throw you when I say this. We're talking about a love-torn child, a kid. This is probably his first real relationship, and somebody was disparaging the person that he loved. He sat on that building for 30 minutes before he took the shot. Why did he wait until the first word trans came up? Then he took the shot.
You think he heard it? He could hear it?
I think he could hear it. I think he also, I don't believe he was motivated politically. I think this was motivated emotionally. I think this was a emotionally stunted person who literally, when I say it this way, just hear me, tried to defend his significant other, not trying to defend some ideology. People who are trying to
What the hell? Like, what's wrong with these people? Trying to romanticize and, oh, well, let's rationalize why this guy did it. Oh, well, you know, he was just protecting his trans boyfriend is what it was, and he didn't like the thing that somebody said about him, so he assassinated him. Like, what? What? Yeah, Montel is full of it. You're right. You're absolutely right. And so's Kimmel, and so's Colbert, and so's all these other people that have, gone after conservatives verbally. We're the fascists, we're the racists, blah, blah, blah. You know, it was funny because not too long ago, Jimmy Kimmel and the left celebrated Tucker Carlson being let go. Here's that clip.
News has severed bow ties with Tucker Carlson. After all these years, they are parting ways, which means he was fired. I mean, that's really what parting ways means. Tucker couldn't be reached for comment. He's already on a plane to Moscow to meet with his manager. But what a shock. I mean, what an absolutely delightful shock this is. Now Tucker can spend more time at home tanning his testicles and touching himself to that sexy green M&M. Sadly, he's probably not done poisoning old people's brains. The question now is, where will he do it next? Will he go to OAN? Will he go to Newsmax? Will he crawl back up Satan's fiery beehole from whence he came? We don't know. One of the most despicable mother Tuckers ever to appear on American television. Fox News.
I just want to emphasize this again. This is supposed to be a late night comedy where you're laying in bed, you're about to, go sleepy by, go to Dreamyland where the left always lives. And this is supposed to be comedy. It's not comedy. You're just being an a-hole. So he's celebrating somebody being fired. But again, when they get fired. Oh, God forbid. Oh, the right's doing cancel culture. I thought this was something they were against. How could they be calling for this? Blah, blah, blah. Like, give me a break. Yeah, we're not going to put up with your shenanigans anymore. We've kind of had enough of it, to be honest. We really have. So he was actually seen leaving the studio yesterday as his stuff was pulled. So here's what that looks like. Let me see if I can get a bigger version of the clip for you. But here's Kimmel leaving yesterday the studio, allegedly. I'm just going to mute the sound because, you know, everybody will hit you for anything here on TikTok, YouTube. But here's part of his crew as well. So the studio, if you haven't seen it, the studio is right off of Hollywood Boulevard, and it's actually behind the studio. There's like an alleyway behind the studio that you can go to, and then there's like a parking lot, and usually there's like a stage and stuff like that. But just to let you know, probably about 100 yards the other way, there's a bunch of homeless people probably defecating and throwing their caca at a bunch of people. But that's California for you. But don't worry, they're doing a great job, doing a fabulous job over there. Well, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Our show is sponsored, well, by me, Bald Brad. We are sponsoring our own show today. We have a store, baldbradstore.com. You can get yourself a mug, which I drink out of every single morning right here. Look at the mug. It's beautiful. If it wants to show, let me get my big old mug out of the way. Look at that. Oh, baby. I've had this mug for years. And yeah, I drink coffee out of it. And it's delicious. But we have a bunch of shirts and we got a bunch of women that watch the show. I've always said our show is different here compared to a lot of demographics of a lot of other conservative shows. We have almost 50% women, 50% men. That's rare, by the way. So you can get women's clothing right down here. You can get it in white, long sleeve. You can get even a big manly hoodie if you want, ladies, because I know you like walking around the house with your booty cheeks hanging out. You got that for you as well. And the big one of the day is my book, Trojan Horse, How the Left is Destroying America. Get yourself a copy on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, sometimes a Walmart. But this is showing you what the left has been doing and how we could push back and fight to win. I wrote this about a year or two, it'll be 2 years next year. And I wrote it because it will always be timely so long as the left is around trying to destroy this great nation of ours. Well, let's get into more news here. Regarding the family fallout of Tyler Robinson that's taking place. A relative has revealed that the alleged assassin's roommate was problematic before the family kicked him out. Well, let's check this out here. Oh, this is updates, by the way. This is breaking news. The transgender roommate of conservative activist Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin was previously kicked out of his parents' house over issues surrounding substance abuse, gender identity, and persistent video game addiction, a relative told Fox News Digital. Lance Twiggs, who has not been charged with a crime, moved into a townhome in St. George, Utah, after living with his grandparents when his father kicked him out, the relative said. The 22-year-old is also in the process of transitioning from male to female, the relative confirmed. He was kicked out of his parents' home at the age of 18, according to a relative. He shared an apartment in southwestern Utah with 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, who's accused of assassinating Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA. Now, Kirk was taken to a local hospital in critical condition, and I might play a video clip. We have somebody that was with Kirk in the car when he was being transported, which does give more credibility to what happened at the hospital, which we might show here in just one moment. His father thought he was being respectful and was problematic, so they kicked him out, the relative said. He then lived with his grandparents until he was 18 and graduated from high school. The woman, who asked to remain anonymous, added that the roommate was struggling with substance abuse issues, addicted to video games, and grappling with his gender identity. You know, there's a lot of kids that just struggle with video games nowadays. Nobody wants to get up off their you-know-what and actually work a little bit, do some yard work, or get out and get a job. They'd rather sit behind a computer, and most parents enable this type of crap, which is going to create a keyboard warrior, a social justice warrior, going online, reading stuff about Charlie Kirk, and not actually touching grass. And sometimes reality is a nice thing to touch, because when you don't deal in reality, well, then you go try to transition. And that's what this person is doing. And because they're dealing with mental issues, they're probably using substances to mask what that mental issue is, to give them a little bit of some sort of relief because they're struggling with that mental health, which is why they're probably playing video games, and they're too nervous to go out and get a job and deal with reality. And now they're already dealing with their gender identity, which is going to extrapolate to other things, which is going to extrapolate to if you say anything bad about the trans community or this individual because they have mental health problems, they're just going to go kill you. That's all this is. It's actually really not that difficult to follow the pattern of if somebody's struggling with mental illness because their mental illness is so severe that they're not able to actually deal with reality in the same way that we are. And so because they're not able to deal with the reality in the same way that we are, their reality is makeshift. And so they're going to do some pretend stuff. And well, sometimes that pretend goes a little bit too far and they start lopping off their own genitals. And if you say anything bad to them because they don't deal in reality, well, they'll just kill you because they're used to killing people in video games. And so they don't think and have feelings about anything like that because they don't deal in reality. They'd rather deal in the makeshift world of a video game. None of this is hard, by the way. It all connects so easily. And I'm not saying video games is to blame here. I'm saying mental illness and allowing people to go down this path of not getting them to touch grass and go outside and go get help for the mental issues. We just allow them to roam free because we're supposed to go, well, they're going through a tough time. So because they're going through a tough time, you have to leave them alone. Yeah, don't bother addressing anything. You need to just let them be and go your merry way. Well, what happens is when some people don't let them be and calls out the stuff that's not true, that you can't transition from a male to a female to a male. It's never happened. It's not actually possible. And when you destroy somebody's entire worldview, well, that means that they have to change their worldview because their worldview was a lie and yours was truth. And so when you're giving somebody truth and they have to accept that truth, that's a very hard thing to do for them. And so rather than them accepting it because it's earth shattering, it's going to destroy their life probably. And then you got to start that life anew again. It's called a reborn Christian, by the way. Well, you'll just go kill that person that's telling you the truth because that's a lot easier to face. You killing that person, well, now you never have to change your worldview, right? Because the person that was trying to change your worldview, that was trying to give you truth, by the way, well, you deleted them. So now you get to go on your life still playing, fantasy world, fantasy land, and everything's going to be fine. And yeah, it is fantasy land. I'm sorry, you cannot transition from a male to a female as much as you want to. And I wish you could because that way probably you'd be happier. I wish there was some sort of drug, and maybe there will be at some point in the future, where it will, as you progress forward, you just morph into, your chromosomes change, and it will happen. Maybe one day we'll have that technology. Not right now. It's not possible. I like dealing in reality because when you are firm in reality, sun rises in the east, sets in the west. If you haven't caught on already, natural order, the way God created things, you have a pretty good foundation in your life, believe it or not. Yeah, you're able to actually dispel what is lies. You're able to distinguish good from evil when you're dealing with reality. When you're not in reality, when you're in fantasy land and you're prancing around thinking you're something you're not, yeah, you're going to have a tough time trying to distinguish between good and evil, right and wrong. All biblical, by the way. The Lord calls for you to distinguish between right and wrong, good and evil. But again, if you can't even deal in reality and distinguish what is real and what isn't, how are you going to do the spiritual stuff and distinguish between good and evil? You can't. So a little bit of a rant for you folks, trying to keep it a little bit tame. We got a lot of people watching, a lot of new viewers. We can't scare them off too quickly, can we? If you're new here, make sure you let us know in the chat. We'd love to give you a shout out. Always appreciate the love and kindness we have of this community. If you're new to our community, we have the best one on the internet. I hate to tell you, we're a small group of people, but we have the best people that are with us. Always appreciate it. Well, let's get into some other news here regarding the FBI. Well, many people don't realize, and Charlie Kirk has spoken out about this, so a lot of people are starting to kind of get a little bit of what's going on here. Well, whistleblower documents reveal that during the Biden administration, and this is no shock to me, the FBI secretly targeted Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA and other conservative groups. You wonder who also did something kind of similar was Barack Obama. Barack Obama actually utilized the IRS to go after his political opponents. He went specifically after conservative groups as well. And that was reminiscent of exactly what Joey did. And this is something Charlie Kirk talked about during one of his questions he received on a campus debate, where the student asked him why was he crying after the election. And Charlie Kirk mentioned that it was one form of many variables because of the possibility of him going to federal prison under a Biden administration if that was to get reelected. And that Joe Biden was in fact going after him and Turning Point USA. So he cried because it was a sigh of relief for him. That was his words, not mine, by the way. You can look up that clip yourself. The investigation targeted not just President Trump, but then candidate Trump, but a wide range of conservative groups, including TPUSA, known as Arctic Frost. The FBI investigation began in April of 2022 under the direction of then director Christopher Wray, who is an absolute psycho. Guy sucked at his job, is terrible. People go after Kash Patel, like, really? You should probably go after Christopher Wray, who is terrible. You never went after Barack Obama. You never went after his attorney general. You never went after anybody, especially with the information we came out now from Tulsi Gabbard with Crossfire Hurricane. It ensnared 92 Republican-linked entities from the Republican National Committee to state attorney general associations. Now, the aim of this whole thing was stated that the objective was to examine what the FBI described as a multifaceted conspiracy. Oh, okay, gotcha. To keep Donald Trump in power after the 2020 election. Here's a conspiracy for you, Christopher Wray. The fact that Joe Biden was the most popular president in American history. Matter of fact, the graph is pretty uniform until you get the Joey in the middle and it spikes up and comes back down, which is an anomaly. Yeah, that's a pretty interesting one for me because the guy's brain wasn't working. It wasn't working properly. So there's a conspiracy for you. How is it that he was able to do all these things, or their lack of, I guess is depending on what perspective you're looking at it, and nobody wants to raise a flag of going, hey, hold on a second. Oh God, what's happening here? Just red flags everywhere, just waving like you're bringing in a plane. Just go. Maybe that was a conspiracy, Chris. The fact that you hid that the president's mental illness, derangement syndrome, dementia, I don't know what he had. Nobody knows because they wouldn't look into it. And then when he, had a physical, he was fine. I guess the guy was sharper than a tack. Maybe that was a conspiracy theory. Maybe the auto pen's a little bit of a weird thing as well. This included investigating false claims of election fraud and filing lawsuits to challenge the election results. Documents show that the probe also focused on financial aspects, including post-election fundraising that allegedly misled donors about overturning the election results, as well as ties to the January 6th Capitol riots. But you notice there was no look into Barack Obama's time when he was president to see what happened with Crossfire Hurricane of, we don't like this assessment. Go ahead and make a new one that just pushes the narrative that we want. Gotcha. Okay. No, that makes sense. Yeah. Just look after conservative Republicans for being conspiracy theorists. But, it's odd how often we are right. You know what I mean? It is really weird how often we get it correct and the left gets it wrong. But whistleblowers told Senate Judiciary Committee Chuck Grassley that the probe expanded far beyond the 2020 election. In November 2022, the probe was handed over to Special Counsel Jack Smith and involved coordination with not only the FBI and DOJ, but also the National Archives, U.S. Postal Service, and other agencies. More than 150 interviews were conducted, more than 400 subpoenas issued, including 300 for witness records, 200 phone selectors, and 20 financial probes, plus search warrants for 10 phones, 20 devices, 7 iCloud accounts, 28 emails, and even Trump's Twitter. I mean, talk about going after them. So there was a sigh of relief for Charlie Kirk, but it just shows you how deep in the trenches the Biden administration was to cancel conservatives and get them deplatformed. But then you got Jimmy Kimmel that's getting canceled by his own company, by the way, for saying crazy ass things on national television, which again, that's with ABC. You have a contract not to be a propagandist outlet, by the way. So that is treated differently than Fox News. ABC, right? These legacy outlets that we don't have to pay for is that you just turn on your TV and it's there. Well, they've been using it as a propaganda machine to speak to millions of Americans and brainwash their asses over a bunch of nonsense. And that's why people think Charlie Kirk's a fascist, Donald Trump's a fascist, a Nazi, and all these other things, because they've been pushing it for years on these platforms. And finally, you got an FCC coming in going, yeah, you know what? We're not going to continue to allow this to happen because it's a breach of contract, by the way. We get that you guys signed the contract over 100 years ago. Yeah, we get that you weren't around when it was signed, but we're not going to allow that to go forth anymore because it's absolute BS. Whereas Fox News, well, they pay for that. They have a right to do that, push whatever they want. Well, speaking of other news here, we got Fed cut rates finally. I don't know what took so long, to be fair. I think they were trying to hold out to see what happened with inflation, where things were moving, what was going to happen with the tariffs. Well, amid President Trump's ongoing push to reshape the Federal Reserve, Chairman Jerome Powell announced a cut in interest rates on Wednesday, offering a potential jolt to the Trump economy. Matter of fact, why don't we pull up to see where the market is starting right now? It's 6:42. Okay. Make sure the market was actually open. I mean, it's morning for me. We should see a spike. Yep, there we go. All right, so here we are. There was a pretty substantial spike that took place yesterday, which you kind of expect to happen. And you do expect this to go up a little bit. And as the market works, we should see even more progress. I would also like to point out that the market is at its highest it's ever been. So for all the lefties in the chat, shout out to you guys for saying, Donald Trump's going to destroy the economy. Oh my God, we're going into a recession. Well, it's a market crash right here. Oh, it's a market crash. But if you actually just zoom out, right? Oh, here's another market crash. Here's another market crash. Here's another market crash. Yep. Oh, here's another market crash. Gotcha. Those weren't market crashes, by the way, guys, but this one is. Yeah. The Donald Trump's going to lead us into depression, right? But no depression here. No depression here. No depression here. Gotcha. No depression here. Understood. Okay. No, it all makes sense. All makes sense. So give me a break. Greatest economy that's ever happened in the United States history is thanks to Donald Trump. Winning. And they hate it, right? They get so spazoid out when you talk about how much you're winning. It's unbelievable. We are up almost 18% since he's taken office. 18% up. Oh, he's so terrible. He hates black people. Well, I don't know what he hates, but he hates me. It's like, okay, he doesn't even know who the hell you are. All right. Well, we have this from Jerome Powell announced a cut in interest rates on Wednesday, offering a potential jolt to the Trump economy. Powell said the Federal Reserve will be lowering its benchmark interest rate by a quarter point, the first cut since last December. That means some minor, but tangible relief for those buying a home or car. Now, it's not much, to be fair. It really isn't that much. And, you shouldn't be putting stuff on credit cards. You shouldn't be putting a student loan out there that's more than your first salary of your first job when you're out of college. You shouldn't be doing that with your student loans, and you shouldn't be financing a car either. But that's what people do because we live in a culture that says that's normal. You borrowing money all the time is not normal, just to let you know. It really isn't. So not sure why we've made it a normal thing in this country, because if you go back, it used to be frowned upon of you borrowing money from somebody. Like your family would basically like disown you, but now it's like actually encouraged. Oh, if you don't have a credit card, you can't get a car or anything else. It's like, yeah, you can. You just save up for the car and you just go buy it cash. You shouldn't be buying a new car. Just buy a cheap one. Like what? It blows my mind just the rationale people put themselves in to make an irrational decision. It's actually called behavioral economics. There's a whole study, a whole psychological realm called behavioral economics around it, which is the stupid things people do with money. And so when you call them out for being stupid, of like, hey, yeah, you shouldn't be buying things on credit cards, or you shouldn't, take out student loans, and you shouldn't finance a vehicle and do all these things. I'm the bad guy for saying it, but not them. Well, Powell on Wednesday said, while the unemployment rate remains low, it has edged up. Job gains have slowed and downside risks to employment have risen. At the same time, inflation has risen recently and remains somewhat elevated. In support of our goals and in light of the shift in the balance of risks, today the Federal Market Committee decided to lower our policy interest rate by a quarter percentage point. You're in a very tough situation here, by the way, for the Federal Reserve. Because it's almost like if damned if you do, damned if you don't. Or you're between a rock and a hard place. And what I mean by that is, well, you got your employment is lowering, folks, right? You had that readjustment. We don't have as many people getting employed as we thought, meaning we're not meeting expectations. But then at the same time, you're having inflation elevate. Well, you offering lower interest rates isn't going to alleviate that inflation. Matter of fact, it might possibly make it worse. So no matter which direction you go, you're effed. So we're going to see how this plays out, and hopefully it stabilizes out, and hopefully we're going to be okay here, and I think we will be. Investors are confident that this is just the first cut. They're predicting similar quarter cuts points in October, December. Many of those investors were clearly thrilled by the news, which is also kind of great because if you can get this in a little bit early right here, people might have a good Christmas. We'll see. We will absolutely see. Many of those investors were clearly thrilled by the news. We saw both the DOW and the S&P 500 jump to record highs Wednesday. To be fair, they were already record highs. Now Donald Trump's breaking more records, which I absolutely love. And Miss Mom, thank you so much for becoming a member of the Bald Brad Army over at YouTube. God bless you. Appreciate you. Many people don't know we do have memberships over at YouTube. It's just you helping, keep the lights on here for us. And all the money that we raise here for the Bald Brad Show goes back into the show itself. So always appreciate everybody here. This is not a great economy when the poor have become so poor that they have to live on the street. I've never seen that in my life. How can anyone call that great? Well, because some people actually choose to be poor, not everybody. But it's, you only have to do 3 things in America not to be poor. It's don't have a baby out of wedlock, get a job, and graduate high school. If you do those 3 things, GMA love, the odds of you being in abject poverty in the United States is extremely low in terms of statistical measures. It is not that hard to go to a church, by the way, and ask for help. There's a bunch of services. We throw billions of dollars at the homeless crisis in the tune of trillions of dollars across the United States in the homeless crisis, homeless problem. So the problem is not people being poor. The problem is that they have mental illnesses. And how do we advance that? It's not difficult to go seek help somewhere. It really isn't. It's just that some of them prefer to stay on the streets. Some of them don't want to. They struggle with mental issues, which we got to help them with. Some struggle with drug addiction, which we got to help them with. But at the end of the day, if you don't want to make yourself better, nobody can offer you any sort of service that's going to make you better. You could see video after video after video of people going, hey, I own my own contracting company. Why don't you come out and work for me today? No, I just want $5 for drugs. There's relentless interviews of this on the internet that you could watch. I'm not saying every homeless person's like that. If that's what your thinking is, then there's no changing your thinking. You just think I'm a bad guy because I'm saying there's a bunch of homeless people that can get themselves out of poverty by doing such, and such, and they don't want to do it. Well, if they don't want to do it, then there's no words I could possibly say that's going to change them, which is why we go back to behavioral economics, is that if you don't change your own psychology, your own personal behavior, nobody out there could possibly give you any sort of wisdom that's going to get you out of that poverty. So rather than saying that it's not a great economy, which it is, by the way, it's always like poor people are getting poorer, rich people are getting richer. It's like, well, I don't see what you're doing exactly to get the poor not to be poor anymore. Like, what are you doing? And I guarantee you that person's not doing anything. Not to just, call them out, but what are you doing? Nothing. They're not doing anything. This month, Trump appointed the Senate approved Stephen Miron, one of his top economic advisors to the Fed's powerful board of governors. This makes Miron one of 12 people voting on rate decisions, while the other 11 voted Wednesday for a quarter-point cut. He was the only one who voted for a larger half-point cut. So I want to be clear here. We should be helping homeless people, but just because you lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink it. Meaning just because you pour billions or $1 trillion at a problem, maybe the problem isn't the money. Maybe that's not the problem. I have a college education. The churches do help. That's nonsense. Now we're being silly. And none of your senior citizen friends out here are not addicts, not mentally ill, just on Social Security. You are spewing propaganda. So wait a minute. If you're just solely relying on Social Security, that would mean that you're in your 60s. My question would be then what were you doing from the age of 18 to your 60s in terms of saving up for retirement? Like how did you go 47 years without planning for retirement and investing to the point where you are only on Social Security? See, this is the point I want to make. Matter of fact, let's bring it over here. Let's just bring the chat right here. This right here is the issue, is because it's everybody else's fault always for your outcome or somebody else's outcome. And I've talked about this all the time. I actually started the show with it. There's no personal responsibility. I don't know if GMA loves on the Democrat side of the aisle, and I'm not there to beat you up, but it is a point to make that this individual, it's always somebody else's fault for somebody else's outcome. It's not the person's fault that they went 47 years and go, I'm just going to rely on Social Security. I don't even rely on Social Security because I don't think Social Security is going to be there when I'm older, which is why I invest and I work 3 jobs. It's amazing, right? They always just see, there's some like influencer online with 100,000 subscribers, right? But they don't see that. It's like, yeah, we don't virtually make really any money here. I work my ass off so that I don't run into that situation of, well, only on Social Security. Yeah, I have a college education too. The churches do help. You want to know how I know that they help? Because I volunteered for church help. I've tore up asphalt. I've gone and done rebuilding Long Beach. I've helped the elderly. See, I've actually done this shit in college. And none of my senior citizens friends are out here, are not addict. Again, see how I mentioned that I said this is not everybody? Not everybody's an addict. Not everybody deals with a mental illness. They just made maybe some bad decisions in their life. And it doesn't mean we should give up on them, but we should help them. But you have to go to the churches. You have to go to your communities for that type of help, your family. So let's break this down on how the country was created so I help people. Let's see if they follow along. But based on the caps, they're emotional because they feel like I'm attacking them, which I'm not. I'm trying to give them advice to help them, that they give that advice to their friends so their friends can be uplifted. Let's first start with this, okay? Let's go to here. I'm going to help them. Don't worry. It's just, it's a pet peeve of mine when people just start blaming their outcomes on somebody else. Here's a good first step, GMA. So you have a college education, meaning you probably have a little bit of money, which is nice. That's great. Nobody's frowning upon that. Why don't you get them this book right here? So let's start with this. Get them Total Money Makeover. Okay, get them Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. All right, get them this right here. That's a great start, even if they are elderly or they're a senior citizen. You can always start here. Dave Ramsey actually had a phone call the other day of somebody that was 70 years old, had a bunch of debt, had zero retirement. How does that happen? You have to go a long freaking time doing that one. So you can get them this book. Let's start there. The second thing you could do is take them to a church and see if the church can help them. If the church isn't able to help them, then you go to another one, and then you go to another one. But even before going to the churches, by the way, you always start with your family. Now, if they're elderly, that means their parents aren't around. The hope is that they have kids. If the kids aren't around, then you go to your neighbors, right? You go to your friends, your local community, because this is the way the country was created. After you're done going to your family, you're done going to your friends, you're done going to your neighbor, then you go to your locality, your community, and see if your community has an outreach. If you don't have a community, well, then you were doing something wrong once again. Why is it that you don't have any family? Why? And maybe they're just older. Maybe the family passed away. Things happen. Totally get that. Well, why is it that you don't even know your own neighbors? You don't have a relationship with your neighbors so much so that if you in a time of need needed help, that they wouldn't try to help you? That's a problem. Now, what about the overall community, the church? Are you not part of a church? Why are you not part of a church? That's something that you can lean on. You should always be able to lean on God. So if you're not part of a church, well, then we got to go somewhere else because we didn't do any of this stuff before. So let's now go to the local community. Are you part of your local community? Do you know people within that are willing to help? People know people. People know people. People want to help. We're the most generous country that's ever existed on planet Earth. So then you go to your community. Maybe your community can't help. Okay, let's go to another step. Let's go to the church then, or let's go to let's go to our local mayor. Let's go to our local senator. See if they have any connections. Hey, I'm struggling right now. Do you have any connections? Maybe I get a part-time job. Maybe you can help me here. I'd love to work at this facility part-time. I work 3 jobs. So I wake up at 4:30 to do this show, to have some part-time income. Then I go to work all day from a main job. And then I go back to another job right after that. Why? Because I don't want to rely on any things. So see, there you go. And my family's dead. I get that. But family doesn't just stop with actual biological family. You can go to your friends. So again, all I want to say is clearly there's nothing that anybody can tell you that's going to help you fix your problem. You don't want to fix the problem. You just want to blame everybody else for the problems that you have, which is a very sad thing to be, by the way. That is a very, very sad mentality to have. And your mentality right now, based on what I'm seeing and hearing, is that you would rather blame everybody else for your outcomes. Rather than blaming somebody else for your outcomes, you have a lot of people in the chat. You have an influencer right here. You could have said, hey, you know what? I'm going to reach out to you via email. I'm going to see if there's anything you could do to help support my friends, or see if we could do something with the friends. But what you would rather do is just blame everybody else for your problems. That, oh, well, the economy's not great. The economy's up 18%. What are you talking about? So if those people had retirement money in the S&P 500, they would be doing extremely well right now. Let me tell you, they'd be making a lot of money. But maybe they're in just a tough situation. Churches are part of the beast system. Yeah, there we go. Okay, this person just, unfortunately, this person's just going through a very, very tough time, unfortunately. So we're just going to hide them. They're going through it. That's not a mentally stable person I remove. If anybody wants to know, actually remove them. That's a very unstable person. And when you start attacking the churches, saying the church is the beast and this is the problem, the system, that's the type of person that's going through some really tough times. And that's the type of person that will seek you out and try to delete you probably. So I'm good on that one. Yeah, we're going to remove them from the chat. That person is not stable. Yeah. So, if that means anything, you guys, there's another example of what I've been talking about for 4 years of the Democrat Party. It's always somebody else's fault. And you want to know who that somebody is? Just take your fingy and look like that. They're going to blame you for their problems. See, if somebody's homeless, you're the problem. And that's when I guarantee you that person was going to roll into maybe some sort of socialist idea. I don't have proof of that because it didn't happen. But see, when it's somebody else's problem, and they don't want to face that problem, you're the problem because you have more money than the person is that's facing that problem. And so socialism says we're just going to take your money to solve their problem, which is only going to create another problem for you. But because you have more money than them, you have to give it to them, which is basically theft. So it's sad. And I come across very cold-hearted. That is not my heart, by the way. But you have to be stern. And the amount of opportunity that you have in this country to make sure that you're not in poverty, to make sure that you are just making right decisions is not hard. It's not hard to walk in this Sunday, by the way, and many Americans did so after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. They walked into a church and for the first time in 20 years, and it blew them away. And maybe that church might not have been a great fit for you. You try another one. And maybe that church, it's called church hopping. We actually have a phrase for it. You go try another church. Get to know the chaperones. Get to know the people. Go out to coffee with somebody. They'll buy you a damn cup of coffee. There's coffee for free at church that you don't have to pay for, that people will talk with you. It's silly to say that, well, I can't do this because of this. Maybe. There's always those situations. But my question is, are you really trying? Are you out there trying to help your friends? Are you out there trying to do this or that? And maybe you are. But to blame other people for everything is not the right way to go. I have a lot of problems. I don't blame anybody in the chat. I got a lot of problems I deal with. I don't blame you guys. Why would I? That's crazy. And most of the problems that we face in life are probably due to us, due to our silly behavior. I make stupid decisions all the time. All the time. I'm an idiot. I've said it time and time again. I'm an idiot. Don't look at me as some sort of anything better than any of you guys, because I am not. I've always said that. I'm not better than anybody in this chat. You guys are probably all better than me. I am just an average Joe dude. I make silly and stupid mistakes all the time. I have to repent every single day. I'm no different than any of you guys. So that tough love is also a good reminder for me going, is all my ducks in a row? Do I have my own shit together? Is my finances in order? Am I doing this, and this that I just hounded that person for? All that goes through my mind. Yeah, church is about relationship with God, but your relationship with God is also about the community, right? That's why you have to gather. In the epistles, it talks about gathering constantly, right? Yeah, gatherings to the church, but you gather with your brothers. So you need to build your community there of brotherly, godly men, let's just say. Well, we're going to end it there. I got to get to work, folks. I love you. I appreciate you. Sorry that we ended kind of on a rough note there of me kind of beating somebody up, but hopefully they take that advice. They check out Dave Ramsey. It's absolutely free. If you get the book, you could buy it at Barnes & Noble. But Dave Ramsey, seek that out. A lot of great information. I follow Dave Ramsey specifically to a T, which is why I don't use credit cards. I pay everything cash. And quite frankly, I'm a cheap ass. So I don't do any of those things. But we are here each and every day. We'll be back here 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Dark MAGA. If you want to join us, you got to be a part of Rumble Premium or follow me as a member over on Rumble. We go over long form video and we get a little bit of spicy. So pray for this country. Pray for Charlie Kirk's family. Pray for Charlie Kirk himself as he's in the heavens, hopefully. And let's just hope that this country gets back on track to where we used to be, where we can all get along. With that being said, I wish I was healthy enough to work 3 jobs. Philip, you do not want to work 3 jobs. My ass is tired. But anyways, I love you guys. Appreciate you. Always blessed to have you here in the morning with me. And I will see you all later today for Dark MAGA. Peace.